You're not going to want to hear this one, but it works. And that was cutting back on how I healed my anxiety from within in a more holistic and a less talked about way and approach. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Rebecca, your self-development sis, and I am so excited that you decided to tune in for today's Sunday self-development YouTube video. So make sure to subscribe so I can help you go from surviving to thriving. So let's just jump right into today's video, because today's topic is something that I feel so extremely passionate about, because it's something I've struggled with for a majority of my adult life, which is anxiety and overall feeling anxious and living a more anxious forward life, I guess you can call it. But before we get into the things that I did to help myself, I want to give a quick disclaimer for this video that if you are seriously struggling with mental health, with anxiety, if you are truly in a dark place and need help, always please talk to a professional, talk to a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a healthcare professional. I'm only sharing things that have helped me, and there's no shame or judgment if you really do need to talk to someone and get other medical advice. So that's all I wanted to let you know, is that this is my own personal experience, and do not take this as medical advice. I'm not a medical professional. So now that we got that out of the way, let's just jump right into it. I used to struggle with anxiety so much more than I do now. And I'll never forget this. My roommate, Autumn, the girl I lived with, my best friend in LA for 3 years, when we were moving out earlier this year, we were talking about how the ways that we've changed a lot since we first moved in together and when we left. And she looked at me and she was like, the version of you who moved in with me was a way more anxious version of you than you are leaving me. And she was basically saying and like applauding me of how much I've worked on my anxiety and how way less of an anxious person I am. And it really had me thinking of what were the things that I started doing to help me actually become a less anxious person. And I want to share it with you as well. I don't think I ever clinically was diagnosed with anxiety, but I definitely struggled with it on a day-to-day basis, to the point where it would be debilitating. It would be hard to even do things sometimes. I would be rampant in my head. I wouldn't be able to sleep sometimes if I was feeling really anxious. I wouldn't be able to eat. And it just felt like this constant negative spiral that really trapped my body and my mind. And I'm here to tell you that it doesn't always have to be that way. And I think there's a lot of things regarding anxiety that just not enough people are talking about, which is why I'm bringing it up. So some unconventional tips that have helped me become less of an anxious person. Let's get into it. Number one, you're not going to want to hear this one, but it works. And that was cutting back on alcohol and caffeine, especially coffee first thing in the morning. So a lot of anxiety has to also do with physical health, right? So our gut and our brains are connected. Our gut is our second brain. And when we are not treating our physical body and our gut properly, our hormones, like all of these different things, that can spark and lead to anxiety. And what I noticed with myself was the more coffee I drank, the more alcohol I was drinking, the worse my anxiety would get. And I think we all know about this, right? Anxiety. Like you wake up the next day after drinking and like you just have the worst hungover anxiety. It's debilitating. And the older I got, I realized that drinking would leave me with like 3 days of anxiety. It wasn't even like a 1-day hangover anymore. It was like 3 days of anxiety. And not saying I don't drink at all anymore, because I still do sometimes. Not saying I don't drink caffeine anymore, because I just still do sometimes. But I've really learned how to cut it back in a way that it's not going to affect my day-to-day life, versus I used to drink multiple times a week. When I was in college, I would drink, 4 times a week and have 3 venti cold brews every day. Like, no wonder I was so anxious. I was putting my body under the worst anxiety stress I possibly could have. So if you're really struggling with anxiety, take a look, take inventory of what you're putting into your body, because that's going to affect your mental health as well. Number 2, this one might be a little bit controversial and not enough people talk about it, but I learned for me personally that the more I identified with my anxiety, so for example, the more I said, I am anxious. I'm just an anxious person. This is just how I am. This is how things have to be. I have anxiety. The more I identified with my anxiety, the worse it got. It was like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? The more you say you are something or you have something, the more that's going to manifest into your life. So I learned, and I needed to learn, how to stop identifying with my anxiety so heavily. Sure, I could be feeling anxiety. I could, be feeling this way, but I wasn't my anxiety. I didn't have quote unquote anxiety. I needed to stop identifying with it. So one book that actually really helped me with this was Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And he talks a lot about how we stay stuck in these thought loops and these negative spirals with ourselves because we continue to act how we've always been, not on who we want to become. So I needed to learn how to reshift that and to actually train myself to not identify it with as much. So practical ways to do that is to just be mindful of what you're saying out loud. Stop saying, I am this, I have this. Say, I'm experiencing this, I'm feeling this emotion. Because our words are super, super powerful and the subconscious mind is always listening. So try doing this, making this shift, becoming aware of it, and see how much it helps, because it helped me a lot. Number 3, something that really helped me with my anxiety that I think changed the game for me over the past few years was connecting to some sort of higher power, connecting more into my spirituality, connecting more with myself, connecting more to whatever higher power you want to believe in, universe, source, God. It doesn't matter, but I realized that if I always had a trust and a faith in something bigger and greater than myself and something that was always working out for me better than I could have ever even imagined, it helped the anxiety dissipate a little bit, right? Because you're not at war with yourself. You're not constantly, trying to control and have everything sorted and figured out, because you have faith in something greater and something higher. So for me, I've really dove deeper into my own spirituality over the last 3-4 years, and that's helped just naturally let some of this anxiety go, because I can connect to something bigger and greater than myself. And whenever I start to feel the anxiety come up, I remind myself of that. I go deeper, I go higher, and that really, really helps me to slow down and take a step back and remind myself it's all going to be okay. There's nothing I need to worry about, and I don't need to be so in control. Number 4, this one is huge. If you want to help these anxious feelings and to feel less anxious, learn how to live in the present moment. The presence is where anxiety can no longer live. And I love this quote. I love this quote. I think it was from Lao Tzu. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. But it goes like this. If you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you're living in the future. And if you are at peace, you're living in the present. So what this tells us is that anxiety is a future feeling. We feel anxiety because we are projecting it into the future. We are trying to control a situation or an outcome that may or most likely may not happen. It's a defense mechanism with our subconscious brain and our primal brains to try and keep us safe. So we are thinking ahead, trying to think of every worst case scenario that can happen. It's a future feeling. So the more you ground yourself back into this present moment and you remind yourself that in this moment, everything is great. There is nothing inherently wrong in this present moment. And I know that for a fact because if you're watching this video and you are in a home safe, you are breathing, your heart's pumping blood, you have Wi-Fi, electricity to watch this video, and you are, able to do this, that means everything's okay in this exact present moment. So another book that really helped me with this, because I always want to give you guys tangible tools, is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but anyways, his book really helped change my perspective on presence. And I highly recommend anyone watching this to read that book because it completely changed my anxiety. The Power of Now. I'll put all of the descriptions I will put all of the links in the description. But if you want to become a less anxious person, ground yourself into the present moment. Anxiety cannot live in the present. Number 5, this one kind of goes hand in hand with the coffee and the alcohol and everything. But generally speaking, learning how to regulate my nervous system completely shifted my anxiety. Because here's the thing, our nervous systems has 2 different ways of feeling. We have the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic. I've talked about this so much and I'm so passionate about it, so I will keep talking about it until every single one of you gets it. But the parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest. That is where we want to be. We want to be at a place where our body feels safe. So we need to get our nervous systems to feel safe. And the problem nowadays is that everything in our society in today's modern world is doing the opposite effect for our nervous systems. Social media, running around, being busy, stress, work, school, the artificial lights, all of our screens, like literally all of it, the processed food, the alcohol, the caffeine, that's going against the parasympathetic nervous system. So all of this to say, learn how to regulate your nervous system and you will learn how to regulate your anxiety. Point blank. Learn to start meditating in the morning. Learn to cut back on that caffeine if you need to. Learn how to stop checking your phone first thing in the morning because that instantly shoots up our cortisol and our fight or flight and immediately gets us out of the rest and digest state of our nervous system. Learn how to do the things that calm your nervous system. And that can look different for everyone. But I truly, truly, truly mean this, that a dysregulated nervous system is going to affect your anxiety way more than you know. So other tangible ways to start getting into the parasympathetic, deep breathing, even humming. There's something really special about humming because it signals the vagus nerve that everything is safe and that you are calm. So like making a noise with your mouth, breathing, closing your eyes, getting into meditation, taking 3 deep breaths, anything to get into a parasympathetic state. The more you practice that, the better your anxiety will get. And last tip, the last thing I did to help naturally and holistically with my anxiety was starting to take different herbs and natural supplements to help with anxiety, specifically ashwagandha and L-theanine. So L-theanine is found in matcha, and I still love matcha. I've taken a little bit of a hiatus from caffeine in general for my hormones, which I can make a whole video on that. But L-theanine is a compound that actually helps with anxiety. So I switched from coffee to matcha completely, and having L-theanine every single day in my matcha, it's naturally found in there, helped so much long-term with my anxiety. But you can also get it in a pill and supplement form if you don't want to drink matcha. Ashwagandha is another great adaptogen. It's not something that works necessarily right away, but if you're consistent with it, it can really help with anxiety. And other herbs and tools and mushrooms, do your own research. There's a ton of different natural supplements and adaptogens that help our body get into a more calm parasympathetic nervous state, which will overall help with anxiety. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please make sure to subscribe. Leave me a comment. Let me know what other future Self-Development Sunday videos you want to see from me, and I'll catch you in the next one.